entertainers.
Okay.
And that is this. We have found the ultimate song to bring up the spirits. We had to use it. I did a lecture here 2 weeks ago, and it was supposed to rain that day.
Right.
So basically, we took this song and just ripped the clouds apart. Now, let me give you the history on this.
Okay.
The name of the song is Barclay's Holy Ghost.
Holy Ghost, okay.
By the Barclays. Now, it's very spiritual in this particular aspect. The original Barclays went down in the 60s on an airplane with Otis Redding. The newer Barclays formed a group in the 70s and was also on a series of, this is Stax Records now, with you know, they had Otis Redding and the whole 9 yards. So the newer Barclays formed a group in the 70s or maybe late 60s, and they went on into the 70s, even appeared on Shaft album, you know, on Shaft album, even did a song called Son of Shaft. So anyway, they stayed with Stax Records up until 1976. And then in 76, they got off and went to Mercury Records and became a very popular group, the Barclays from the 70s on in. And then about 30 years ago, in 1978, 31 years ago, this was about 2 years after they left Mercury in 1978. The way the contract is, usually you owe the previous group or the previous label extra song or extra album or another album. So they went back in 1978 to Stax Records, which was the actual home in which the original Barclays went down. And they recorded Holy Ghost. And Holy Ghost became a very powerful song. It was so powerful till it was able to be mentioned on the first commercial rap album, Rapper's Delight, with the Barclays and the Holy Ghost. But what it is, it has the timbales at the end of this riff. And it goes on now. And when the timbales come on, not only they talk about the Holy Ghost, but when the timbales come on, this is when the spirits come out. Now, the interesting part about this is, I had the album version. I remember the 12-inch version, which was about 8 or 9 minutes long.
Right.
From the 70s. But when I got around to getting it, I got the album version, and which was, I guess, no more than 5 minutes, about 4 minutes long. So anyway, so what I had to do, I was desperate. Because Linda was like, oh man, this song here, that little piece, we got to get it extended. I said, yeah, I didn't get the 12-inch version from the 70s. So I didn't have an extra album, so I couldn't mix it. And basically, I just took my hand, put on the needle, and put in I was copying it onto a CD, and I just took my hand and manually put it on the needle and kept hitting the riff of the timbales over and over, till I got it to about 8 minutes.
Right.
But it set up enough stuff to bring the spirits through. And it's for healing and all that. Now, the mystery to this is,
right,
when they were called back to Stax Records to do that last album, the spirits that went down or died with Otis Redding came back through on that album. So as a result, when you hear that timbale riff at the end, that is the spirits, literal spirits that have transcended. So we talk about some very powerful stuff. And so it was just interesting when you said you was going to put her with a fire, evil and all. And I said, well, you know, I said, man, I said, well, when she after she gets through with that, I'm going to tell her about the Barclays thing. So I guess this was enough time to explain that whole aspect.
Yes, and very well needed so. We have so many people listening, Bobby, as you know, from all over the world, and I can tell you this has been a busy, busy week for me. Ever since everyone found out that you were coming on the show, you're very loved by many, and everybody really wants to hear your insight and wisdom that you have to share. And so let's start with that, because some people, this may be their very first introduction to you and not familiar. Where do you get all of the knowledge, the insight, the wisdom that you get? Where do you say you get that from? Where would you say that comes from for you?
Well, part of it is previously maybe over 20-something years of study, but a lot of the insight also comes from the spirit.
Right.
You see, from the spirit. So it's a combination of a bibliography. Naturally, I had to study to familiarize myself with the systems. And there's about 70 disciplines in the metaphysical aspect. That's why I make the thing, no one has no time to just stick with one discipline.
Right.
If you have a person say, I'm going to study only ancient Egypt, they're only studying a fragment. Because Egypt, although it was the original, one of the originals, and they had thousands of years of scholarship and spiritual teachings, they also had 1,000 years of rape and pillage.
Right.
And the Library of Alexander burnt down twice. But this stuff made sure it made itself all over the world. So if somebody say, I'm only going to study Kabbalah, they're only studying the fragment. You see, if somebody, and usually, a lot of times, our ego is we want to master something. So we want to level other systems because we become proficient at this one. But what we don't realize is, but being proficient at one, you see what I'm saying, is only being proficient at one picture frame on a whole film. You see what I'm saying? So you have to familiarize yourself with as much knowledge and information as you can, because knowledge is truly infinite. And so what I had to do, fortunately when I started out, especially in the black conscious community, we went through a whole historical aspect where we had to relearn all of our historical ancient Kemet, and ancient Africa, ancient India, ancient what have you. And so when I started with the mysteries, because they talked about the history, but they were always mentioning the mystery, but nobody necessarily was actually teaching on it. Right. The only person that was close to the metaphysics at that time was Dr. Delbert Blair. And mainly he was focused on basically a lot of ufology and a lot of other metaphysical aspects. But what I had to do is when I started lecturing in 92, I had to go and I had to have massive amount of bibliography and different systems because I had to single-handedly bring back a lot of these systems. Then, Phil Valentine, who had been doing lectures since the 80s within the confines of New York, started doing some stuff when he came out in 94. So, but basically, when it came to the bibliography and stuff, I basically had to just unravel all this stuff by myself. As far as when it comes to the bibliography and the actual naming these particular texts in these books. So as a result, and like I said, we had Phil Valentine. It was only me, Phil Valentine, and Dr. Delbert Blair. And that was pretty much it for the whole 90s. I think they had Henry D. Bernardo, which was a brother at one time. So as a result, I had to unravel tons and tons of information and different bibliography, and had to deal with multiple systems, including mythology, which is very key. That's the glue that holds this stuff together. There's a lot of mythology. We'll get into some of that tonight. But one of the keys is, and then by 2000, I started going into although I was always going into my own path, I started living the realm of the gods that I was learning about. And so a lot of the adventures and a lot of the path working became real.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? It became real. So it's a combination of both of what this thing led to be when it comes to this particular spirituality. A massive library of bibliography, but also tapping into that particular spirit realm. And that's one of the experiences or one of the synopses that I want to go into tonight and give you a background on this.
Right.
So people can understand just exactly what we're dealing with. You see, are we dealing with trying to go into these older traditions? What is the goal? What is the end result here? Are we just going to be people that just continue serving these traditions, which were far fragments from what they originally was, are we supposed to be becoming gods? And that's the mystery.
That's the mystery.
That's
yes.
the mystery. Gods. When they went into the mystery systems in Egypt, West Africa, India, China, where have you, Mexico, Olmec, Aztec, when they went into these mystery systems, these mystery systems was ultimately to raise you to the level of gods. You see, now, as those mystery systems deteriorated, they became religions. And although you would have, let's give you an example, you would have something that's a little more advanced than Christianity when you talk about Yoruba or Voodoo, because they kept the ritualistic sides.
Right. To them.
They're still nothing but a small fragment or a religion compared to when there were mystery schools where you went into those schools to become an Oshun, or to become an Ogun, or become an Urzuli. You see what I'm saying? There's a difference.
Right.
Later on, the fragments was left behind. You basically worship them, and pretty much it became a beggar system. So much until even the gods, when they came in 2001, they said, we don't really even like humans. We're not even sure if we like you. And at first I was put off by that. And then I realized what they were saying.
Right.
They were saying that basically the humans don't even contact us or don't even want to even deal with us now unless they want something. So a lot of the rituals and stuff, you see what I'm saying, they could care less about an Oshun or Legba or anybody like that until they want something. You see what I'm saying? But one of the keys here was we went into those original systems to become those deities. And so we were in God's school. And that's what's missing now, because we lost the point of origin and the true meaning behind all of this. You see?
Right.
The true meaning behind all of this. So these are some of the things that have to be put back. And as a result, I didn't get into this journey just to ask them for material things. I mean, I pretty much could. I went to college for damn near 8 years. I pretty much could have made my own way in that. I came out of the materialism, you see, to explore something on a much more divine level. I didn't know it at the time, but ultimately that became the goal. You see what I'm saying? So this is what we want to get into, the goals and the objectives of what this occult is. You see what I'm saying? And so this is the paradigm we're going to lay down tonight.
Okay, sounds like a great one. For all of you out there listening, we have Brother Bobby Hemmett with us here live in the remix this evening. And for those of you out there listening that want to find out more information about what all but Brother Bobby has to offer, I'm going to go ahead and give you something that you can kind of jot down, and we'll be talking more about this as we get into the show today. And that is, you can simply go to Facebook and Google Bobby Hemmett there. That is a great place to connect with him. Or simply go to MySpace/Bobby Hemmett and send a message there, and you'll be able to find out all about his DVDs, and we'll talk more about that as we continue on. Now, Bobby, I do have some questions for you, and some of which are a lot of things we're going to cover tonight. And so that is my question. This is a question I've had, during my quest of spirituality, and I constantly remind myself of this. I ask, what is the purpose of all of this knowledge, and how is it going to help us?
Right.
And is this information going to be useful when we die, when we transcend from here? What is the purpose of all of this study? You said 20 years. Some others, scholars have 30, 20 years.
Yes.
What is the purpose of this?
Well, in order to find out the purpose, we need to go and access several mythologies and give a synopsis on what happened to us. What happened to us. Now, a lot of times we get back, especially the Africans or the black people, we have to reiterate that because we're talking internationally. We get into it because we want to find out how we came fell to such a low point. But what we don't realize is we fell to a low point when we first came in to humanity. When we first became locked into the human stage. And that's where we need to go. And then we can think. So we'll go into a bit of the synopsis on this so we can answer later on what we're supposed to be doing. So basically, let me take you through a few things. Prior to this particular universe, what we would call the known existence of the Milky Way galaxy or what have you, because it's relevant to the Earth. We inhabited several primal worlds.
Okay.
And those primal worlds, well, they came in 1998 and they said, well, this particular universe is something like 14 billion years. So the primal worlds that we inhabited before this particular creation, which is about 14 billion years, we just give a number just for a synopsis. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
You never really know, but let's get to kind of round this thing off. Prior to this particular creation, which is about 14 billion years, we inhabited several primal worlds that existed about 14 billion years prior to its falling or demise. You see what I'm saying? So we existed in these particular primal worlds. And those particular primal worlds were these high superior deities. And these high superior deities, in so many words, got old and started falling asleep or losing power. Their children rose up, which would be the gods that exist today, the ones we worship. Their children, those primal deities or entities, children rose up and thrust their parents into a physical existence, and they became humans. So we are the parents of the gods that we worship today.
Wow.
You see?
Right.
And became humans. And so in our human existence, what we were supposed to do was to go to an incubation stage of the mummy that you see Osiris wrapped in the mummy.
Right.
Which was a cocoon. And it was a cooking vessel to cook the soul into perfection and sift out the flaws that made us fall in the first place. You see, there was a flaw in us that made us fall in the first place. And for so many years, millions of years, we had to sift out the certain flaws to perfection.
Right.
Thus leads us to the present situation of the perfected stone, the philosopher's stone, or the great works, or the golden fleece, the holy grail, the Excalibur, all these different systems that tell you about this perfection. The Christos, the Christ form, which is the perfected soul, perfected stone. So what happened was, we took on a physical existence. Now when we first took on this physical existence, we could maneuver just as gods. And that's where you get your Lemurian and your Atlantean periods.
Okay.
So we were into what is called a semi-physical world. So in those particular days, the physical world was like a faint shadow. And the spiritual world was clear. As the vibratory rate fell and we became more encased into the physical, the spiritual world became a faint shadow and the physical world became visible. And we sunk lower and lower into humanism, into a particular aspect. We used to have multiple gifts. Clairvoyance, clairaudio, we could fly, we could do just about everything you see a superhero can do.
Right.
And it was maybe hundreds of different gifts that was reduced down to the 7 or the 5 senses. That we ended up with the 5 senses. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
And that primal world was covered over, that God form was covered over with something called the elder seal or the elder sign, and was covered over with now what you call the physical brain. The physical brain is the enemy, and humanity is the enemy. And up under the physical brain is the primal worlds which is the pineal gland. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
Which is the pineal gland. And so we're talking about an incubation period, which the inner world, which is the pineal gland, the kundalini energies, the chakras, there's 160 chakras. You see what I'm saying?
Body, right. Yeah.
Yes, and when you look up into space, when you can see these chakras and you can see these particular souls, when you look up in space, those are the souls that's down here inside of the human body, covered up, and we are dreaming outwardly. So we have a series of dreams that we call the illusionary phenomenon that we call reality. It's nothing but a trick from the brain.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? To give us a series of illusions that don't even exist while the soul slept. And as the soul slept, these series of dreams became known as the ego. And the ego, the self that you identify with now, that what you call yourself a human.
Right.
And as that, and it supposedly thinks that it is real, but it is not. It is only a construct or a projection of one's dreams coming from the soul. So, we created, go ahead.
I was going to say that is perfect because I do have some questions about the soul. I just want to interject to everybody.
Yes.
Welcome again. We are listening to Brother Bobby Hemmon. In just a short moment, we will start to open up the phone lines. So if you have a question and you want to call in, you can definitely go ahead and reach us at 646-652-2711. And we'll go ahead and try to get to your questions. So, Bobby, you know, with all of that being said and really trying to pull this together, that definitely takes me to the question that I did have for you. And I want you to see, I know we sort of talked about it and you mentioned it, about the 8 primordial gods and goddesses. If you can speak on that. And also a question that has come up several different times, I know, with the conscious community and those of us who study these particular areas, did the gods ever walk the face of the earth? And you're saying, yes, they did. And so my question now is, do they walk the face of the earth now?
No, okay. Okay. All right, but the 8 primordial gods on earth, they later on became the 8 chakras. You got 7 major chakras. They got one called the 8th chakra, or the height. You see what I'm saying? As far as major chakras, your 8 primordial deities, which used to be, you know, you could even go with the later mythology of Isis, Osiris, Horus, Set, the Nut, Geb, so on. Those primordial deities, they exist within us as the chakras, and naturally the Horus, which would be the final implementation, would be the pineal gland, the Horus or the Mayat, because there's a dual figure. It's an androgynous figure called Hor, Ma, which is Mayat, Ku. Horus and Mayat are Heru, Ma, Ku. Heru and Mayat in a pyramid. Ku means pyramid. So Mayat would also be a form of the pineal gland, the finishing form of that. So the Mayat, most people think that it's physical principles, and yes, they used to have the same principles to govern society, but Mayat means a perfection. In the spirit world, it means the perfecting the last result. It's called the tikkun in Kabbalah, the perfecting principle. You see what I'm saying? So, Heru Har-Ma-Ku, Har-Ma-Ku. So the primordial deities later on became encased in the human body as the chakra systems. Now, it's interesting here. That I want to say one thing before I go to that part about did we exist? So we existed on the planet in what we would call pre-dynastic Egyptian or pre-dynastic society on into dynastic society. When the Egyptians, when they asked them, they said, well, how old is your civilization? They said, well, it's 3,000 years of dynastic period and another 8,000 years of pre-dynastic. They're roughly around 11,000 years.
Right.
They said, well, who used to rule before then? They said, that's when a whole bunch of gods used to rule. Well, who were the gods?
Right.
Well, the gods used to be us before we got more encased into the physical body. You see, in cases to the physical body. We used to rule on a semi-physical level. Now, all of this is after the fall. You see what I'm saying? But even so the earth has several existing periods of existence. Not just so when you talk about Atlantis, Lemuria, Terra, Mu, and all of these primordial places, the reason why they can't find a lot of evidence on them is the simple fact that they existed prior to the physical realm. So the earth had self-existence. They had one that was a spiritual existence, then one which was a semi-physical, semi-spiritual existence on into the physical. You see what I'm saying? So this is why a lot of people, you see, and so whenever you do find some older stuff, like they have stuff down in Haiti, they have stuff in Cuba, and they found this stuff on Atlantis, those were the last stages when stuff slipped into the physical. And even then, we were still gods. Now, we had a history. We knew that we were going to lose our memory. So we got to work in what they call the monumental phase of chemics, and we built the monuments around the world, and a lot of the records, especially in Kemet, because we got enough hieroglyphics and stuff, they built it, so they focused on Egypt, and we built those things because we knew that our memory was going to go dormant. So what we did is we built all of these massive records so we would have those things when the memory went dormant. So basically, the ancient primordial person went to sleep. So all of the dynastic period and all those years of all that record keeping was that we knew that we were going to sleep, and we had to put these records on the earth. You see what I'm saying? Before we lost the memory.
Right.
You see, before we lost the memory. Before that, we had what is called, I have detailed files. You've heard the Terminator say that.
Right, right.
I have, so the ancient primordial person had detailed files. So you always ask yourself this question. Why is it that you would have a part of Africa that would have the massive amount of monuments? Egypt has more artifacts that they can cover museums around the world.
Right, true.
And you see, around the world, you got 4 scripts, hieroglyphic, hieratic, and demotic, and they got one that they can't even translate. It's over there. So how would you have all that stuff, and then the rest of Africa is barren? You can barely find monuments. And the problem was the rest of Africa, including the Egyptians, had detailed files. So their existence, their knowledge, their technology was on the inside of their brain or inside of their minds. Right. And so they only built the monumental phase when they knew that they were going to go dormant, and this stuff was going to be covered over, our memory was going to be lost. So when you see those monumental phases in East Africa and on into India and different places where you had the most of that, that was only after the detailed files started to slip and they had a race against time. So now to ask this particular question, did the gods walk on earth?
Right.
Okay, and did the gods walk on earth? The gods did walk on earth, but when they walked on earth, that was during the pre-physical stage. You see what I'm saying? So Osiris gets shut up in a box. Before that, he's the god of the perfect black. He gets shut up in a box. The box itself is the physical body. You see what I'm saying? Is the physical body. Now, these particular gods in the pre-existent world were androgynous, which means that both Isis and Osiris was once one. That's why Osiris, or Osar, is worshipped as the feminine god in parts of Africa. That's in the book Geraldine Pinch's book, Egyptian Mythology. So he's the bull deity, but he's also worshipped as the cow deity, Heru. So Heru is a form of Osiris. Okay. But what we're talking about androgynous beings. And when our children separated us to get us even into more lockdown, they separated the male and the female. And when they separated the male and the female, that is the period of separating Isis and Osiris, or Aset and Osar. And as a result, when Isis and Osiris was together as the primordial pair, which is two twin halves of the same essence, that was called the Atlantean period, the Lemurian period.
Right.
So part of our separation.
Shoe, right.
Huh?
I said
Right.
or like chestnut and shoe, yeah.
Chestnut, right, exactly. Exactly. So when this stuff was separated, this put us more into bondage. Put us more into bondage. And that's why all disciplines ultimately talk about reconnecting the two hemispheres. Shakmabina, which is a Kabbalah. Shiva, Pavati, East India. Lakshmi, Vishnu, East India. Solomon, Shiva, Christian lure. You see what I'm saying? Isis and Osiris, Kamite. You see, so the ultimate thing, and so that's what the Maya period is. Horus, Maya, conjoined back into the primordial androgynous stage. Now, when we're not talking about physical androgyny, we're talking about spiritual androgyny. We're talking about something where your soul regains back the feminine half of itself.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? So this masculine half of the self and stuff like that. So now, on one of the kings that answer your question, he's right. We didn't walk the earth in the physical because at that particular time we became humans.
Got you.
And we became humans. But what it's not saying here is a lot of the mythology is talking about walking the earth in the future. So right now I'm talking to you, and we're talking to people listening, is a form of the return of the gods.
Got you.
Of the return of the gods. It's just that we are too damn busy trying to be humans. So when we come in contact with gods, and we're supposed to be trying to find out what it is to be a god, we're trying to find out what it is to better our human life, which is not even relevant.
Right.
If human life was relevant, why is it that if a person dies every 5 seconds and the earth don't even flinch, that means that it's not even relevant. The only thing that is relevant is before the dream. That which is before the dream.
Right.
Right. Excuse my telephone, every now and then it rings, so.
That's
yes.
okay.
Now, there was something else I was getting ready to say. But it'll come back to me. Wow.
Well, we were talking about them walking, and we're the return of the gods, and walking in this
right.
physical state.
Yes.
Which, all of this is so incredible. And so many times I hear this question go around, and you can answer this one as well, Bobby,
yes.
because I think this fits right into what we're talking about now. When we get to look at ancient Kemet, and we look at that, or Tamaray, or whatever we want to call it,
yes.
or Africa, ancient Egypt, when we look about that and we think about such a great nation, I've heard so many discussions of people saying, well, what happened? Why did we fall? Why did we fall as a nation, as people? How did this happen? Some of them would say, oh, it was our turn to fall, and what goes up must come down. You hear all of these different things about what actually happened to the dynasties or what went on in that period. And I want you to expound on that and to really talk to us about when people began to say what happened in ancient Kemet, it was sort of destined to happen because it was our time to fall.
Yes.
What do you have to say to that?
Yes, we have texts. Now, you probably hear me quote these texts, the Hermetic texts,
right.
where we knew we were going into slavery 5,000 years before it happened. So it wasn't a fall. It was what it was a process of a different stages. So in so many words, it wasn't a fall. It's a process of different stages of deterioration and different stages of growth.
Right.
So what happened here is our sun would emit these solar rays. And these rays would come to a civilization. And it would put a certain rate that would raise the melatonin levels or the melanin levels to a point that these people build civilizations. But in the universe, when we talk about the chaos sphere The laws of chaos is change is supreme.
Right.
You see, nothing down here. If this nothing down here. Now remember, now we were put into a artificial world of dreams and a series of events that never happened by our children. So, even if we build a civilization out of that, if it didn't change, we would never get back to our perfected state, or we would never realize our perfected state. So it's no different than you got baby teeth that come in.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Right.
Then they fall out, and then your other teeth come in. Then your wisdom teeth. It's a series of stages. And that's what happened with humanity. Humanity was not supposed to stay the same. It's just that we, as black people, are representative of the fall because the simple fact we were the oldest. So we were around long enough for the actual change to happen. You see what I'm saying? Change to happen.
Right.
You see, and you got to realize this. See, this is the thing about the time factor. Because what really messes us up is us being a Christian-minded people. We think that the earth is about 3,000 years old, you know, with Abraham and the whole Garden of Eden stuff. Then a few civilizations came for about 1,000 years, and then we got to America. So basically, we got part of it 3,000 years old.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? So if you look at the timeline, it's not a fall. If you look at the timeline, if the Egyptians studied the stars for 40,000 years and didn't tell nobody.
Wow. Yes.
You see what I'm saying?
Right.
And even if we just let's just say just for conservative people that don't want to even get into that far back, let's just say 11,000 years, which was the Egyptians said out of their mouth, and then they was being very conservative because they said you never really tell no one your real timeline. You see what I'm saying? That's sacred.
Right.
So let's just say 11,000 years, and America has only been here a country for 230, as far as America, not the America that was run by the Moors and all. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the 1776. It's only been here 233 years. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
And it's never went to perfection, and it's already falling apart as we can see. But the point I'm trying to make here is to last for 11,000 years is unheard of.
True.
Rome can't claim it, Greece can't claim it, Europe can't claim it. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
Only the older nations can claim this type of stuff. So when you think about it and you push the timeline back, it wasn't a fall. It's just an intermission.
Got it. Makes sense.
Let's just look at just Africa.
Right.
Africa didn't fall into a colonization. And although they took us out of Africa and took part of us out of Africa in the 1500s, Africa didn't fall until the 1800s. When we talk about the colonized states. So even that, you're only talking about intermission for a couple hundred years. You see what I'm saying?
Right, that's true.
You know, so and most of the falling came from the British Empire, which took over India, Tibet, parts of Africa. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
You see, and so the slave trade wasn't just considered a fall. It was an extrapolation. You see what I'm saying? But it wasn't necessarily the fall. You see, so when we're talking about this, we're talking about intermissions. And we must understand that the timeline's a lot longer than what we think. And we have been advanced a lot longer than what we think. You see, and some people only take our advancement back to physical society. But if we lived in a society, not even the primal world, because that was before we were talking about human history. We lived in a form of human history that was thousands of years of pre-physical society that we've been here a mighty long time.
This is correct.
So in so many words, he goes again. It is not a form of a fall. It's a form of a process. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
What they call putrefaction or illumination. You see, it's no different than a season. You know, when the flowers bloom, they die, they bloom again next season. That's what happened with us. But in this particular case, we are at the cusp of, on the end of this, with our DNA, which is perfected. You see?
Right.
Which is perfected. It's just that the people don't have a blueprint because people are too busy locked into human endeavors. So you must die from everything that you think is important is not important. Not even bullshit-ass family.
Right.
Stick a fork in them. They are done. They are the worst.
Oh, yeah.
Your family is there to keep you down if you are consciousness. They are hideous, putrid feces. So when they have a light being coming to this planet, they will send family members there to keep you down because they know you get all emotional. Nothing is important than your rise back to Godhood.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
So very well said. We are listening to Brother Bobby Hemmett, and I know you guys, I told you we will be taking some calls, and we will. We're getting ready to open up the phone lines. I see that there are many people on the phone lines right now that we have. We have several people on the phone lines now, and I will be getting to your calls. We have just 11 minutes left to go in this hour, and then we will continue this discussion with Brother Bobby Hemmett. For those of you who are interested in purchasing some of his DVDs and some of the great work that he spoke about over the years, you can simply go to MySpace and / go to Google Bobby Hemmett, and it will pull up, or you can go to Facebook. Everybody knows about Facebook. I assume to be over there. But you can just simply Google in Bobby Hemmett and send him information there, and you'll be able to reach out and touch him. And, of course, you can always contact me. You'll be able to reach him through me, Miss Blue, of course. And I'll leave that information on the homepage as well as the links to Brother Bobby Hemmett.
And I want to give... I want to give a shout-out to Brother Panic because he's the one that makes the Facebook and the MySpace possible.
Okay,
you see what I'm saying? Because I don't even own a computer.
Right.
And that's by, a computer, not by economic, that's by choice.
Right.
And it's not about, I think it's negative. No, I'm just not the kind of individual that's going to sit before no keyboard. So it has nothing to do with anything being negative if you got one.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? If I did that, I wouldn't be Bobby Hemmett.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? So that is the reason why, but it's nothing personal. I don't want to shit on the cyber community. I'm just saying, I'm like the Dalai Lama. I'm like the monk, and I'm quite sure the Dalai Lama's online.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? But I don't own a computer because the simple fact is my brain don't tick that way. You see what I'm saying? You see, so that has something to do with something on my cosmic level.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? On that particular level.
So we do, at the top of the hour, we did give a thanks to Brother Panic, but let's go ahead and give another thanks to Brother Panic for maintaining all of this stuff for
He
Brother...
maintains all of that. So
Brother Bobby.
But also, you can go on his website and check out things also.
Brother Panic, you want to go ahead and put your information in the... we know to go to MySpace / Bobby Hemmett, and that's BOBBYHEMMITT. You can simply go there and get to it, or go to Facebook and simply put in Bobby Hemmett and send the information there, and it will surely get to Brother Bobby Hemmett. Also, you can contact me as well, but definitely you want to hit those two spots up to make sure you get in touch with Brother Bobby Hemmett. So we're going to continue on the discussion. Before we actually get ready to open up the phone lines, I have another question. These are some questions that have been sent in. There are some listeners from Japan that may not be able to call in, so we'll get their questions as well. But my next question that I have is, I want you to talk to us or explain to us about the waters of noon. And are we still in the waters of noon? Talk to us about that.
Yes, the primordial waters of noon are what they call the slime of Kim. This primordial soup. It now exists in our central nervous system. It's called melanin, chaos in the blood. The primordial waters of chaos. It exists inside of us now. And I talk about and I was talking about Stax Records, but Stax is a Phoenician / Greek term. We say Greek because the Greeks the Phoenicians later on became the Greeks. That's why there's 85% sickle cell trait in Greece, because it was a black society. So the Greek mythology is different than the Greek philosophy. Greek philosophy was stolen from Africa, stolen from Egypt. Greek mythology is Phoenician, Sumerian, and Typhonian. You get the Typhonian, which is pre-dynastic Egyptian. They become the Phoenicians, which is later on, and then the Minoans, and then the Greeks. And there was never, the Spirit told us, I said, there was never, I said, why did you let the Greeks into the mystery system? And I said, why did you let white people into the mystery system? They said, no, white people wasn't around long enough to be in the mystery system. But you had Greeks in the mystery system, yes. So what does that mean? Well, the Greeks weren't white. A lot of that is late 1800 when they built most of those statues.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? They even fished a statue out from the Aegean Sea in 1972 and sold it to a museum in Ohio. And when they did the carbon dated, it said 1970. So we're talking about a fabrication of history. But nevertheless, that's another thing.
Right.
In the Phoenician mythology that we call Greek, there's a river that runs in the underworld that's called Styx. And our ancestors or the gods float down these barges in that underworld. That is the central nervous system of the primordial people. So the primordial waters of noon was transferred from the cosmos into human bodies, and the other part of that was split open and made into the ocean, which is called the salt water. So with the overthrow, all this is in the Enuma Elish,
right,
which is the overthrowing of Tiamat, the great mother, which was the primordial waters. But what ends up now in this particular time when you're talking about that, it exists within the central nervous system. And a good part about that now, as more research comes in, there's a lot of white folks that's got this stuff in the central nervous system. You see, something rotten in the cotton. They're growing Buddhas and everything else. So don't exclude yourself from this. You see what I'm saying? Because it's bigger than what we think it is. You see what I'm saying? So as new research go on, but the primordial waters of noon now exist within us, within us, and that's what makes up all of the endorphins, the DMT spirit molecule, different types of elixirs in the human body.
Right.
It is the consistency of the existence of the primordial waters of noon.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Beautiful. All right, I think it's a good time for us to go to the phone line. So for those of you who are listening and you're on the phone line, do me a favor. If you would like to ask a question, please just press the 1. And what I will do is I will call on you. Some of you are there and you're just listening, and that is certainly fine. You are welcome and more than willing to just continue to listen, and we'll get your calls. Okay, so we're going to get ready to start taking calls right after this brief, and I mean very, very brief message here.
Yeah.
All right, everyone, we are live in the remix, of course, speaking with Brother Bobby Hemmett. And so the phone lines are open, and you are free to call in. The number that we can be reached here is 646-652-2711. And so I'm going to go ahead and just call out your area code. Tell me who you are, where you're calling from, and we'll go ahead and get right to your questions. Caller from area code 231, you are live in the remix. Please tell us who you are and where you're calling from. Caller from area code 231, you are live in the remix. Okay. Sounds like they're a little busy now. We'll come back to them. All right, caller from area code 407, you are live in the remix. Can you please tell me who you are and where you're calling from?
Hello, my name is Omar. I'm calling from Orlando, Florida.
Yes, Omar, can you do me a favor? If someone has their computer speakers turned up, can you make sure they're turned off while you're on the phone so we don't get the feedback?
Yes,
Okay, thank you so much. This is Brother Omar, who also discovered me on YouTube, so one of my YouTube listeners and a big Bobby Hemmett supporter. You had a question for Brother Bobby Hemmett?
Yes, how you doing, Bobby Hemmett?
How you doing?
I came across your information through YouTube over the years. You know, I started on Islam, but when I first heard you, I tried to dodge you because what you were saying was so opposite of what I was used to hearing.
Yeah.
So
It can be rather shocking.
Yeah, but eventually I came back to it, you know, listening to you and Brother Phil and some other brothers.
Yeah.
But my question is, like, when I was young, I used to try to, like, focus on things that weren't there, like, in between, like, say if I stood in between a wall and, like, in between, like, nothingness, until, like, eventually I started to be able to see, like, microscopic organisms. And, like, now I can see it whenever I want to see it, consciously or unconsciously.
Yeah.
I just wanted to run that by you and see if that has anything to do with this, some of the information or things.
Yes. When we are young, we come back to the planet with all of those senses open. And as we go towards puberty, those things start to shut down. They start to shut down when we get in high school, and not only that, when we get into society, when we're told that we're not supposed to deal with that. The only misfortune about the hip hop community is it destroyed the minds of thousands of young people becoming grown too young, because it had to be hard. You see, you got little children now, you see what I'm saying, because of the culture that the hip-hop brought, and, you know, they became grown. So therefore, and I'm quite sure that the people who control our lives control the dead folks' lives, not ours, because we are in control. I'm quite sure they're happy because they understand that we lose our innocence too fast, especially with the culture where it suggests that you become an adult and all hard and stuff based on the music and stuff at a younger age. And so we lose the innocence. And in this particular point, whereas the nerds become the complete enemies in schools. And you used to be in high school, but it is as low as primary school. You see what I'm saying? And this is a way that you can shut down those spiritual sinners at an earlier age that would not even be, even in my day. In my day, you started becoming, trying to become more of an adult, you see, right after junior high school or right in that process. And when this thing happens, what happens is it shuts down those spiritual sinners. And that's why they tell you to be innocent. And basically, and what we have to do in the metaphysical world is we have to spend all this time trying to tear off all of this royal dressing to become innocent. And you have to die again. But it's a lot harder now with the youth. So basically, when you were young, you pretty much, your mind pretty much was free enough to keep certain things going and certain things open to now you have glimpses of that. And that's a good part about it. But so the remedy here now is, and I had to tell this to a brother who was getting a PhD. He loved my work, but he could not get in it, and he was real into the social protests and all of the, the social concerns and the black power this, but he had very hard time trying to slip into the spiritual because of he became a left-brain prisoner based on academia. And as a result, I told him what he had to do is to get into the training of everything that you think is crazy and stupid and weird, embrace it. And everything that you think that's logical, rational, and common sense, say that that's crazy and reprogram the mind. And that's where the spirit will come in. You see what I'm saying? And you break out of the left brain prison of logical, rational, and the five sense. What smells good, looks good, sounds good, and tastes good. You see what I'm saying? And feels good. So these are things that reprogram the mind. So you're right on it. And because if you stayed with it a little longer, it would be nothing for you to even get back even more of those things. But believe it or not, our DNA is going to do it anyway. People are having in things right now. In the early 2000s, I would tell a lie, and the next day the damn lie would come true. You see what I'm saying? Because I spoke it into existence.
Exactly.
Yes.
so we can make what we choose to make happen.
Exactly.
If we want to find the negativity, we can find it. If we want
exactly.
something real and pure and positive, we can find it. Beautiful.
Exactly.
We're going to go on. Caller from area code 216, you are live in the remix. Please tell us who you are and where you're calling from.
Yeah, this is Ursa, my aunt.
Sister Ursa, my yacht.
Calling from Cleveland. What's up, Bobby?
All right.
I just wanted to say two things. I just wanted to get your outlook on these monsters that's washing up on shore on the mountaintop in New York. And also, you see a lot of people just dressing androgynous. You know, they just, they could be with women and women one day and men, and then it's real crazy. And I just wanted to get your idea of those two things.
Well, believe it or not, there's so much abnormality going on until it is the media's place to stomp it out just by giving you distractions and not reporting certain things. Now, did you say monsters?
Yeah, they had the monsters. One washed up last year in June.
Right. Yeah.
And then one washed up May of this year.
Okay, what happens is this. The monsters, the dragons, and all of those things were used to be material or entities from that world I talked about that was non-physical. Well, every now and then what happens is these worlds bump into each other. The physical and the non-physical world, and maybe it would be the third dimension, which is the physical, and the fourth dimension, they into each other based on cycles, pockets, different conjunctions, and every now and then these entities will show up. You see what I'm saying? These beings will show up. So the Loch Ness Monster was true. You see what I'm saying? And the reason why people can't see it and stuff because it bounced back out of that dimension. So it's all types of things that's actually happening right now. And so we're thinking, and the key is to make you still think that it's 1980 or 1990. But there's things and if the news reported what was really going on an everyday basis, you would think you would be living in another planet. But that's one of the keys is to keep you on lockdown. You see, with the same mindset. You see, so every now and then, nothing new is supposed to happen. When we do know every now and then something new does happen, it's just that they don't report it. So it's multiple things that's going on. And I talk about how this dog showed up in my front yard, scared of cats. Scared to death of kittens, big ass dog. And the kittens was walking around him like they the gangsters. And so the next door neighbor, I asked them was they dog, and they was like, no, the dog just showed up. And so they told the next door. She said, well, we took him way out, about 15 miles out off of Camerton Road. And when we got back to the house, he was back in the front yard. And I said, that's because he's coming through another dimension. He was someplace in America in one dimension. He saw the gate, the porthole, and he came through it. And so when you took him way 15 miles out, he could still see the porthole, and he just went through the porthole and ended up back in your front yard. You see what I'm saying? In your front yard. So basically, when they moved, they took the dog with them. They also stole one of our cats, but they took the dog with them too. Yeah. So
all right, Bobby.
They stole the cat that the dog rid of. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much, Sister Ursa Mayat, for calling in, and also thank you for your support. That is actually who really gifted us with bringing Bobby Hemmett to the remix the first time. So a very supportive sister there of all of her work and also of Brother Bobby Hemmett. We're going to continue on and go to the phone lines. Please be ready with your question and comment so we can get everybody in. Several people on the line, over 20 people. Caller from area code 407. You are live in the remix. Please tell us who you are and where you're calling from. Caller from area code 407. Okay, we're going to continue on. Perhaps they're just listening. If you would like to ask a question, please press 1, and what 1 will do is actually go ahead and give me a signal that you're having a question for Brother Bobby Hemmett. Caller from area code 310. You're live in the remix. Please tell us who you are and where you're calling from.
Peace, Hotep, Black family, brother Hotep out here around from Charlotte, North Carolina.
Okay, thank you so much for calling in.